Hello and welcome to Secrets to Success, Pearl of the Orient, where we are interviewing figures in Hong Kong who have made a real success of themselves. And today we have Kevin Bowers, who I've known for a number of years now. And I have to say, resilient is the word that would describe Kevin in a nutshell, for sure. And it's been a pleasure getting to know him. I remember the first time we met was up on Elgin Street, up in that corner bar. We were talking, and Kevin had mentioned to me, him and his partners had just built Hong Kong's largest private legal firm, which was House Bowers Williams at the time. And I just remember walking away from that conversation. I was so impressed. I was like, oh my God, how does somebody build Hong Kong's largest privately owned firm so quickly? So I'm going to hand it over to Kevin and let Kevin talk. And I think what we will start is, where you come from and what made you come to Hong Kong, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Well, what brought me to Hong Kong? I was working in London as a relatively junior associate in a law firm which specialised in construction law, which wasn't me. So they decided that I would be handy to transfer over to the Hong Kong office for 6 months to help out on a fraud case, which is more me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up staying for nearly a year, went back to the UK in 1996 and came back about March 1997, where I joined Hong Kong's largest independent firm, which was Deakins, as an associate, became a partner, joined international firm, Richards Butler, which got taken over by a big American firm called Reed Smith. And that's where, when things were going as they should, and a normal career path trajectory, but then things changed. Because of the way big international, especially US law firms work, when my practice was basically suing insurance companies, banks, accountancy firms, all of a sudden the diktat came from New York that I wasn't to act against any financial institutions anymore. Considering that was all I did, that forced a change. And me and two of the other partners founded House Williams Bowers, and we took 55 people from big American law firm and started our own firm, which was great, very stressful. I think it was the largest ever startup law firm.
You look younger now from when I first met you.
I still had grey hair. So it was a big undertaking, Hong Kong's largest ever startup law firm, and within, I think it was 6 years, we were 200 people. And then it started to get a bit too like my other law firms. The big international firms where you have office politics. There was issues with the billing structure I wasn't comfortable with, which is the traditional law firm hourly rate, where people charge and record their time in 6-minute units religiously.
I know.
And there's big pressure on those associates, trainees, partners to bill up to a certain target. If you don't meet the target, it has a financial impact on you in terms of pay rises, bonuses. And so the dreadful word that I hate, or 2 words, utilization rates for lawyers. So you're very commoditized. If you don't hit 95% of your utilization rate, which is your time recording against your billable hours against the actual time you record and is billed and recovered, all ends up in this thing called a utilization rate, which leaves me cold. In one of my firms, you would log on to your computer every morning and it would tell you how far you were behind your billing target. As a disincentive for you to start your day, I can't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's when I started to think about a different model and a different way of working within the law. Then I had a rather unfortunate experience, a case I'd been working on for a decade, basically was coming to an end, and I was coming back from a weekend in Phuket, and I was arrested at Hong Kong International Airport.
Holy shit.
By 7 triad policemen Luckily, unluckily
Handcuffs
for me,
on, everything, was it?
they had the big triad police jackets on. I was handcuffed and led through the airport. They wanted to put the bag over my head, but I said no. I had to sign a little form for that. And I had no idea what was happening. And it was over a without prejudice lawyer's conversation I'd had 9 years previously, apparently. The case I was involved in, someone had gone to prison. I was acting for a liquidator. And anyway, of course, I knew it was about something else, but it took a year to get resolved before I was found not guilty. During that time, only about 2 months after I got arrested, I was expelled from the law firm which I'd founded with my name on the door.
You were actually expelled, were you?
I was, yeah.
That's. I remember bumping into you on Queen's Road, actually. I remember like it was yesterday. And I go, hey, Kevin, how's it going? And you were saying, oh, I'm not part of, House Bowers Williams anymore. I was like, well, your name is there, House Bowers Williams. That's you. And he was like, God, you were like, it's a long story, I couldn't get my head around that, and I do know there's a lot of goodwill towards you in Hong Kong after what happened, because obviously you proved yourself innocent.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of goodwill, unfortunately not in the firm which I founded. But not ironic is the wrong word, but one of my former biggest competitors, a firm called Tenacious, I know a lot of their partners.
Nice people, yeah.
They're very nice people, and they gave me a home for a year while I was going through the prosecution. They had faith in me. I was able to park my clients there. They said to me that, if I wanted to stay there as a partner at the end of the process, I could, or if I wanted to do my own thing, I could, and take my clients with me. I decided ultimately that I wanted to do my own thing because I wanted to execute this new business model. And so I decided to set up my own firm. Again, this time not such a grand scale, this time with 2 or 3 people to start with. I started on April Fool's Day, on 1st of April 2020, just towards the end of the nuisance troubles in Hong Kong with the protesters, and at the start of the global pandemic. So a lot of my friends thought I was completely potty, starting in the sort of in the mix of those two things, but actually I think it's played into my firm's favour because when there's so much mayhem outside, my new billing model, which I'll explain in a minute, actually provides value for money, certainty, and an element of shared risk to clients who the last thing they want in a time of uncertainty and trouble, political, pandemic, mystery bills from their law firms with mystery numbers, mystery people, mystery tasks. Yeah. Haven't got a clue what's been done, but they get this massive bill at the end of each month. And so, and I had experience of that where I would do a very good job for a client, I thought, either getting a good deal or getting a good result in court, and still falling out over the bill at the end. And so you would do provide a good legal service or a good product, and still there'd be a falling out with the client at the end of it. So I decided to do something different. My new firm charges only fixed, staged, or retainer fees. I agree the scope of work. I agree the fee with the client before I start work. They pay the invoice before I start work. I do the work. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, well, I know. I recently just used your services.
You did. As long as you're happy, I'm happy.
It's very good.
But especially in these times, it's proved attractive to people. And because I agree the scope of work, I agree either the fixed fee or the stage 1 or stage 2 fee or the monthly retainer fee, there's no argument about that. As a new business, that fee is also paid in advance, so that helps cash flow, which is good for any business. And that also means that after 2.5 years, my unpaid invoices are, drumroll, 0. That's because I generally won't start work until the scope of work is agreed and the fee is agreed.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's straightforward. There's no hidden agenda. There's no padding of timesheets, mystery numbers at the end of the month that clients don't know what they are. Yeah. Of course it happens. Yeah. I always give the example of, a lawyer charging the old hourly rate, getting on a flight to London and usually to go and see a client, and that client has to pay half that lawyer's hourly rate for the 11 hours they're on the flight, while that lawyer's working on another 2 or 3 other cases, charging those clients full rate, and then watching Love Actually, right? So that is how is that good value for anybody apart from the lawyer, right? And when I first started the new firm nearly 3 years ago, I remember one afternoon a GC, General Counsel, and the CFO came to see me, and they say, Kevin, we're sitting here as a big corporation because we're fed up with our big US international law firm because the General Counsel had sent a WhatsApp to the partner of the big firm saying, I don't really understand the advice, can we come and have a meeting next week? The partner had forwarded that WhatsApp to the associate, who forwarded it to the trainee. At the end of the month, they got the mystery bill, and they were charged $1,400 for the 3 of them reading the WhatsApp. And they said to me, that's no value to us, and that's why we're sitting here. I said, no, you're wrong. That's not no value. That's minus $1,400.
Yeah.
And of course, they went, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And it also, they told me that between the 2 of them, they spent about 3 or 4 days a month going through bill narratives and bills and all those things associated with hourly rates. And that wasn't a good use of their time, because they had felt they had to check the lawyer's bills in so much detail and then go back and negotiate the discount. And that whole process would take, a lot of management time. And that's no value to them. That's lost time, even if they're shaving a bit off the bill. But there's still, in that model, for me, there's no real value provided to the client when you are basically paying for someone's time. And it's such an antiquated model where the value ascribed to each of the various fee earners, as we used to call them in law firms, is quite arbitrary, depending on their qualification or their experience. And, I've seen examples of trainees come back after a day researching a task and producing a note and being sent back to spend another day doing it because they didn't spend enough time, recording, doing that job. And so the firm can basically bill for it twice. So I wanted to provide a business model in the legal world which was certain, value for money, and I do share risk. I'm not allowed to charge contingency fees. I don't charge success fees, but there is an element of risk where I've agreed a fee, and sometimes I will, I'll do a bit more work than I thought I would do. In which case, the client gets even more value for the money. And for me, it's just it's an easier model. It means running a law firm is a lot more cost effective. Now, if you charge an hourly rate, your headline rate, as law firms call them, are high and the profitability is high. But that's because their bills are generally huge because they're based on the hourly rate. But their costs are also very high. So, for instance, in my firm, we only have one non-fee earner, an administrator. We run Office 0. If you have what's called time capture software, where everyone's recording time into their computers, that can be $5,000 per lawyer per year. That's just the software. Let alone someone then to administer it. Let alone the credit controller. Let alone the person who creates the bill narratives. There's 5 or 6 people involved in just producing one bill. So your cost base is automatically higher. So even though my agreed staged or fixed or retainer fees are assessed through experience and from knowing what's involved in that scope of work and tightly drafting that scope of work, my cost base is much lower than a traditional law firm, so that my model is still profitable.
And are you getting much commercial work, like big banks or insurance companies and stuff like that, or is it mainly kind of personal stuff you're getting these days, and the big commercials have not kind of turned around you?
I'm acting for big international companies, whether they're big property companies. I'm acting for big PR agencies. So I am acting for big international companies. I'm acting for SMEs in Hong Kong. One group of people who do not instruct me is banks, because I quite like suing banks. And it's sort of ingrained in me. I can't
Kevin
stop
loves
it.
suing anybody, by the way. If you ever want someone sued, he's your man.
So quite often I do what I call managed exits, where a senior employee of a bank is being let go, being made redundant, or is victim of some form of office politics. These managed exits, so I do a lot of those. And also I used to act a long time ago. I tried acting for banks, but getting paid, even when you got a good result, was hard.
Really, yeah?
Yeah. Even I did one case where I defended a $300 million claim. I got an 80% recovery on my client's costs, and the bank took a year to pay my bill.
Yeah, it's funny, if you didn't pay your credit card on time, they cut you off.
Too right.
Let me go back a bit here, Kevin, because to you, your life to you is quite normal, and you've spoken about it quite quickly there, right? But I've been on the sidelines just since I met you, and I've seen the Kevin I met, who at the time you were going through a divorce, I remember.
Yes.
Very stressful time, right?
Very.
I'd imagine so. Then you built one of Hong Kong's largest privately held legal firms. So you're up here, right? You go to Phuket, you come back, you have the triad police handcuff you, try to put the bag over your head, and then you get pushed out of that firm. Whatever happened, I don't know. Most people wouldn't be able to get back up and go again. There's a big black hole in life, I find, and because I'm in the recruitment business so many years, I see it. There's a big black hole which drags people down. One of them is divorce. That can drag people into a massive black hole and become alcoholics and drug addicts and all this kind of stuff. And then the other thing is what happened to you in your business. You put your life and soul into that business. Your name was on the door. And then, all of a sudden people who you probably thought were your friends turned out not to be your friends, And to me, that's resilient, because in the legal world, you're going from prestigious position, your name is on that door. Then all of a sudden, bang, arrested at the airport. You were all over the newspapers, I remember.
Yeah. Front page.
You're in the front page of the newspaper. I remember that. And how does somebody go from that life of prestige, with the name on the legal firm, the largest privately held firm in Hong Kong, to the police arresting you in Hong Kong airport, triad police, and having to leave that firm? Like, where do you get that kind of resilience from? Like, where does that come from? Most people couldn't get up off the ground after that. Not after a divorce and then that happening. Like, most people would be floored. I know that for a fact, because I'm the business I'm in, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to kid you. It was hard. And in the job I do, especially dealing with sort of employment issues and shareholder disputes, I've seen people do what you said, go down what I call the wormhole.
Yeah.
And that's not something I wanted to do. It was hard. In sort of the year of the prosecution, it was great that I was given refuge by Tenacious. I decided to not go to Lan Kwai Fong or Wan Chai.
Yeah,
that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, bad idea.
for the noggin more than anything else. So I did a lot of hiking. I tell you what, when I was hiking, I did my best thinking about, okay, so what do I want to do? I don't want to do what I've done before. I don't want to be in the same environment I was before. I want to do something different on my terms. And that's one of my housemates from university. He'd just started a law firm in London that only charged fixed and stage fees. I talked to him about it. And I'd already decided I want to do something different. So I thought, right, that's for me. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to be the first person to do it here. And so when I was hiking, there's many hundreds of kilometers, I was thinking about that and how I would do it and what I would call it and everything about it. And that's basically, everyone said, well, you've done all this hiking. I didn't look good skinny, by the way. It's good I put on a bit more weight.
Your dog, you always have your dog out hiking with you all the time. I noticed that. Yeah, keeps him nice.
Blackjack gets into everything I talk about. The lazy hound.
Yeah.
But, a lot of walking, and I still go walking with him every weekend. That's where I do my thinking.
Yeah, very important.
That's where I do most of my thinking. And I find that really beneficial. I don't generally like hiking with other people because then you're talking about something else. So I go hiking to just be outside, and I plan. And I plan ahead. Now, you call me tenacious. I used to call myself tenacious. Sorry, resilient. I prefer tenacious now.
So where do you think that comes from, by the way? Because in my world, the recruitment business, right, I'm doing it nearly 20 years. I've met all sorts of people, and generally a lot of people can't take the knocks. They're good in a good economy. Bad economy comes, or they suffer a divorce or whatever. They just go down the wormhole, as you say, right? Generally, there's something in childhood or somewhere else where they've developed this kind of, this hard exterior that allows them to be able, because I always refer to boxing all the time. Sometimes you're in the ring, you're getting battered, and you have to regain your composure and go back at it again. When you can't quit, it's basically, it's an unwritten rule. You cannot quit in boxing. And if you do, you lose all respect. Where does that come from, that kind of tenacity?
Well, I was at boarding school since I was 10, 11. And I played a lot of sport, whether it was football, rugby, hockey, tennis, cricket, just everything. And I think, like you, I know you like boxing and the whole process of that. And I was very much into team sports, which is the antithesis of what I do now, which is solo hiking. But in the team sport thing, I think I'd learnt how to be tenacious in terms of never giving up, chasing the game, chasing the ball, whatever it is. And then after that, you'd finish your game of football or rugby, whatever it was, and then it was, back to doing your homework in the prep room on your own. You had to look after yourself, making sure your washing was done. I was pretty independent by the time I was 18 and went to university. So at university, I was totally independent. And I think it comes from that. And when I went through my trials and tribulations, luckily I had my daughter here and I got a lot of comfort from her. And the damn dog, doing
so sports and boarding school.
Sport and boarding school. And I've just always been that sort of character where, I hate the word, but maverick. I haven't really fitted in. That's why I didn't fit into the international law firm office politics thing, because I didn't do it very well.
You're the only managing partner I know who has a picture of Scarface above his desk, which I love. Picture of Tony Montana.
That's to intimidate.
I love it. I think it's great.
Other lawyers.
I like it, but people like that. Genuine. What's the word for it? People can see through the fakeness sometimes.
You know what? In my meeting room, I have the South China Morning Post front page where I was announced not guilty.
Yeah.
On my verdict, because I don't want to hide away from it. So it's on on the wall in our meeting room in the office.
I like that, yeah.
Next to the saber-toothed tiger skull.
Yeah, which I want. I want one.
All this is to scare opposition lawyers and their clients who come to visit the office. But, I want to be me. I don't want to be someone else and be all politic like in a big international law firm. That's not me. And I think you do your best work when you're yourself and when you're free to express yourself. And I like to think I'm an inventive, imaginative lawyer. I'm a problem solver. I used to call myself a litigator, always going to court. Court's now a bad place, too expensive, too long, too stressful, too much time. Then I was a dispute resolution lawyer. Arbitration, mediation. Now I'm just a problem solver. If I can solve the problem without involving all that stressful, expensive, time-consuming dispute resolution mechanisms, I've done my job.
Well, you said recently at a party, you said, whenever your phone rings, people don't want to be calling you. I found that quite funny.
It's quite depressing, especially when sometimes they actually admit it. I don't want to be calling you, Kevin, but I am. Because, when the phone rings, it's usually because someone's in trouble because they're owed money or they owe money or they've fallen out with their other shareholders or whatever the issue is. It's usually bad news for them, so they don't want to be making the call. But the new business model actually should make that a little less painless than it would otherwise be if they were paying the mystery bills at the end of every month.
So Kevin, we went through your rise and your fall, getting arrested by the police in Hong Kong airport, being one of the top lawyers in Hong Kong, I would say. It's a massive fall to go through. You've picked yourself back up. You've got bowers.law, who I've personally used. So I know it's a highly effective model. And the CFO of my company, when I told him about it, he was like, "Really? There's a legal firm like that?" He's like, "I want to talk to that guy." So you must be a CFO's dream, really, of an organisation because they can manage the costs. From my dealings with legal firms over the years, which have generally been fine, I've always thought it's a very old traditional model. Like, it hasn't really moved at all with the times, where technology seems to be disrupting every other sector in the world. You've come along and disrupted with fixed fee. But how do you see the future of the legal world going forward, and how would you see maybe technology disrupting it, or people like yourself, a disruptor, disrupting the actual industry itself? Because it's a big money industry, right? Sure. Nobody wants it to change because it makes so much money. Like, come on,
Lawyers are bad at change, and stick in the muds, very much so, because the billable hour is very profitable. There's no getting away from that, but it's become evident that there's no value in it either, or no value for money. So there is a move towards a more technology-based industry with AI, and there are companies which produce and try and produce commoditized documentation, especially basic contracts, whether it's an employment contract, a shareholder agreement, a will. Now, and there's been varying degrees of success of those. It very much depends upon the law firms they get to buy into that model, and that depends on the quality of the documentation, but also the instructions that go with it. Because let's say there's a will, which in the very olden days used to go to buy at W.H. Smith's, but unless the instruction manual tells you what not to do, like you don't make a beneficiary become one of the witnesses because it can invalidate the will. There's things like that. Or if there's an employment agreement that a startup company wants to use, they want to make sure it's bespoke for their industry, for the type of employees. Are they going to be working from home? Are they going to be consultants, not employees? All these different things where buying that off the shelf, if you like, or off some software distributed by a software company or associated with a law firm, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what lawyers do is give bespoke advice on a certain situation. Now, AI is coming into it, and it will become more prevalent. It's the bespoke element of it. So it may well be that especially companies will start buying more packages for their basic documentation, but they will still need advice on the bespoke element of it. And I have been involved over the last couple of years with providing some material for those companies, and again, varying degrees of success, because also there are issues over liability insurance, all the boring legal stuff to do with providing advice. Are you providing advice when you're giving a template to someone? Could be arguable. So you have to make sure the terms and conditions of those types of companies distributing that software, they've got to get it absolutely right. Otherwise, the liabilities can be too high. So there's no doubt that technology is going to play a larger part, and that a lot of basic legal services can be commoditized and will be commoditized. It's just making them bespoke. That's going to be the issue.
So for me, since we met, right, watching on the sidelines, I've kind of seen it. I've seen it all. And if you remember, actually, I went down to your office when it was just you in bowers.law. You didn't have any lawyers. It was just you. I think it was one of your first days. I sat with you and we had a cup of coffee, and we had a talk, And then I was in your office the other day, obviously because you helped me win back some cash, which thank you so much for that and your team.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. What's the plans for bowers.law now going forward into the future? Because it strikes me as a very good business model. Me personally, I found it very clean, efficient. I knew how much I was paying. You know, I can't fault it at all, really. I got the result that I wanted to. So is this going to be the new... Is this going to challenge the big legal firms, or what's the future for bowers.law?
Well, for me, we're already up to 15 people. We've moved offices, nice, shiny, again, quite modern office, open plan, so that's great. I'm still looking to expand. No one has yet applied the same model in the nearly 3 years we've been going. A lot of law firms who do just a lot of corporate commercial work, again, corporate agreements, charge fixed or stage fees, what they call the milestone dates in the corporate world. But particularly doing dispute resolution, no one else is doing that. I spend a lot of time and have spent, it's a learning curve, it is a tough learning curve on deciding what should go into a scope of work in different stages. But after 3 years, I'm getting there and making sure it's fair to both me and the client, and we agree it. So we will be expanding, we will do more of it. But lawyers are bad at change. I remember when I first set up, I went out for dim sum with a lot of managing partners of a lot of international law firms who would just say to me, "What on earth are you doing?" They could not get their heads around it. "Oh, but that won't be as profitable." And then I was explaining that the cost base is so much lower. And a lot of them secretly, I think, want to do it, but there's no way that those big international law firms are going to give up the hourly rate. They're just not, especially on the dispute resolution, longer running matters. They might do it for drafting a shareholders agreement, as I say, or a pretty commoditized type of document. But other than that, the hourly rate is too valuable to the equity partners of those firms.
And what about attracting talent into this new model? What's it like attracting lawyers who are used to the billable hours into your model? Like, what's the sell to them? Can they make just as much money working with you as they would for the firms charging per hour, or how would that work?
Of course, bowers.law can't pay the same as a big international US law firm or UK law firm. Of course not. What I have noticed is that, and I wasn't expecting this is just something which I've noticed along the way, is that in the big international law firms, and local firms where I've worked, there's a lot of competition between lawyers, between the associates in particular, where, okay, will you help me on this? Only if you put a certain amount of billable units on this file, and I'll put so much on this file. Or if you give me 30% credit on that file, I'll give you 51% on the one I open next. So there's like a trade-off.
Okay.
What value that is to the client, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so not many people help each other very much. It's very much my client, my file. Where you eliminate the hourly rate and the utilization rates, I'm forever very happy when I walk into the office and I see groups of 3 or 4 lawyers all huddled around the same desk helping each other. Because that competition element's gone. So all you're valued on in a law firm like mine with my model is your work product, not how well you pad your timesheet or how well you can trade billable units. So the work product should be better because everybody's concentrating on the work product, not their own billable time. So for me, attracting talent is proving quite easy, I have to say, because I've learned that junior lawyers in particular hate filling out timesheets. We don't have one in the office because they're measured then by their ability to record time, not how good a lawyer they are. Whereas under my model, everyone helps each other and the work product should be better, which should make them better lawyers.
But there's a nice culture in your office. I noticed that when I walked in. You know, I noticed this because of the business I'm in. Like, say, there's a nice feeling there. The people are happy. I get that feeling from your lawyers.
Well, that's why I'm telling you. That's why. And so every day I see people huddled around helping each other, because the model lends itself to that cooperation, just to make sure the work product is as good as possible. And if the work product is as good as possible, that means the lawyer's improving, which means the legal services provided by the law firm are as good as they can be, and the client's getting the best legal services they can. Not everyone in the office worried about billable units and utilization rates.
Well, also the, don't know what generation you call it or whatever, but because of, again, the industry I'm in, I see it. people are not as interested in the money as they used to be, believe it or not, which is strange actually. A lot of it comes down to company culture, and do people enjoy working there, and sometimes they are willing to make a little bit less if they enjoy going to work every day.
Sure.
Rather than, I know lots of people who've left very high paying jobs because it was an absolute nightmare and the boss was, you know, an asshole or whatever, and they've left and took a lesser paying job, however they're happy. And I think there's more of an emphasis on that these days.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still an all right payer.
Yeah.
But my daily life, I enjoy it 150% more than I did in a law firm applying the old business model of hourly rates. And I like to think that my lawyers feel the same way. And because we don't record time, for instance, if we have 2 or 3 junk trips a year, I do them on a Friday because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It won't impact on anyone's utilization rate. I'm trying to do things with clients, like our Christmas lunch this year is in a client's restaurant.
Nice.
Right? Just give something back.
Yeah.
I know they'll treat us well.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm giving something back. They've
Yeah.
got, especially in the moment, you know, taking 15, 20 people to a restaurant for lunch all afternoon, I expect.
Course, yeah.
You know, that's giving something back as well. So I'm just trying to do things a bit differently. I'm eliminating the fax machine. We do not have a fax machine in the office.
Do companies still use fax machines?
Law
you know, I've
firms-
actually never used a fax machine in my life.
Law firms in Hong Kong and elsewhere, and the government and the court system in Hong Kong all insist on sending faxes. I have iFax, so it just goes into my inbox and I distribute them.
Yeah.
I will not have that curly paper in my office. I don't use Dear Sirs on letters. We find out the names of the people we're writing to, Dear Mr. or Ms. So-and-so. Just things like that. I'm trying to make it a bit more progressive, a bit more modern. Just because most businesses, apart from law in Hong Kong, are like that. I'm afraid the legal fraternity is still stuck a bit in the 15th century with Charles Dickens English, which again doesn't help the clients. If I'm writing a letter of advice and I'm using Charles Dickens English or not giving an executive summary in plain English at the start, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I've called you a number of times, right? Because I find you very personable. Again, call Kevin, you know. You've always been highly personable throughout the years, and I think people love dealing with you as a person. And just to close this up, because I know obviously you've got another appointment, and just to witness on the sidelines, going from where you are building the biggest firm to getting arrested in public by the Triad police, escorted out of the airport, on the front page of the newspaper, kind of, I don't know what happened with your old firm, but you know, you left anyway. I imagine you found out who your friends were then and who they weren't.
That old adage, you find out who your friends and enemies are in times of, you know, turbulent times. It was very true.
Yeah.
I had a really random experience where once I was during sort of the wilderness year, I was entertaining 2 lawyers from London. And we were going from one venue to another venue. We got into a taxi, and the taxi driver turned around, looked at me and went, "You're the naughty lawyer."
Really?
How a random taxi driver knew I was a naughty
deep down,
lawyer.
people love it, Kevin. They love it.
People would come up to me in the street and go, "Oh, you're that guy." Yeah. So a lot of people knew about it, and some friends disappeared. Some came really good. On the business side, like the guys from Tenacious came really good. I was disappointed by some people, really impressed with others, but you do find out for sure. You forgot about the police executing the search warrants at my flat as well.
Oh, so they searched your home as well?
For drugs and weapons.
Oh my God.
I think they found my Swiss Army knife.
Oh,
So yeah, it was all pretty bad stuff. But you know, it was well known in town. Unfortunately, it was in all the newspapers. Yeah. Tenacity is the word I want to use, not resilient. Resilient, for me, has too many negative connotations, whereas being tenacious and sort of just overcoming things and being really persistent at what you're doing. And I'm a hard worker. I'm in the office by 7 every day.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
But that's just the way I like to have a quiet couple of hours to clear my decks and clear the noggin before I start the day, dealing with my usual day. But I don't stay late. That's just, everyone's different. I prefer to work that way.
I'm a morning person too, yeah. I'm not an evening person.
Everyone's different, but that's the way I like it. But being tenacious involves working hard as well. Not just working hard at the job, working hard at yourself. Hence, sometimes when I don't go and want to walk blackjack on a Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, I make myself do it.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm very pleased I do. I always feel clear-headed, more relaxed, and more set for the day.
So to close things up here, because the podcast is to encourage people and offer them some nuggets of gold, you know, and you've been through it all, really, the ups and the downs, and you know, you name it, you've been through it. The house searched, you know. What advice would you give to, say, an up and comer in the legal world or in general in business, that you've learned, because you've learned a lot now recently, I'd say. Since I met you, you had a roller coaster ride, I would say. And then you've just come back up again, you know, and it's funny because people will always kick people when they're down, and then as soon as they get back up again and they make a success of themselves, everyone wants to be their friend again, right?
Sure.
That's what I always say to people. I couldn't care less what people think. Fuck, you know, who cares? What advice would you give people going into their careers, whether it be legal or anything else, or business in general, if you have any nuggets of gold?
Well, for me, and I can only speak from my experience, but careers will have ups and downs inevitably. They just always will. But for me, particularly if you're a young lawyer, find out what you really like about your job, and try and concentrate on that element of it. Now, as I said before, lawyers are stick in the muds. They're bad at change. But if you want to go and do a boutique law firm doing just what you want to do, if you want to do a new business model, do it, because that's what you want to do. You'll enjoy your working day 150% more than playing to someone else's tune. So you've got to be brave. You've got to be tenacious. You've got to be committed. You've got to work bloody hard. But at the end of it, it's very rewarding. You get to share it with the people you're working with in hopefully a more collegiate, friendly environment, and it just makes your life better when you're really enjoying what you do. So my advice is find what you like and concentrate on that, and if you can maneuver your career, even within a big organization, if you can find yourself within that organization, that's your spot, make it your spot. If it's doing something on your own, which is my preferred option, not everybody's, then do it. But you've got to be brave, and you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. If you're not comfortable in your own skin, it's harder to do. So you do it not to please anyone else, you do it to please yourself. But if you're doing that, that means that the people around you will experience a better you, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your colleagues, and hopefully that's what I've been able to do by, again, I hate the word reinventing myself, but that's been through Tenacious, working hard, and I think just becoming a better version, or the version of me that I want to be. So, for instance, just in my law firm, just one tiny example, everyone has the same medical insurance, whereas a lot of the law firms, the partners have rock star medical insurance, and the secretaries or the court clerks will have not so good insurance, but everyone's a human being. So everyone in my firm has exactly the same insurance as each other.
That's good.
Because everybody's a person. Things like that. Just things that I hadn't even thought of before when I was working in big organizations, I can now do. And if I can make that a better place for me and for everyone around me to work in, that's what I want to achieve.
So it sounds to me that you're focusing more on the people than you are on the bottom line, and that produces then a good bottom line.
It does, because then people are more committed to the job, to providing a decent legal service, providing a good legal product for the clients, and guess what? That makes the clients happier. So it actually does help the bottom line and makes it a viable, profitable business with hopefully people who are happy working in it.
Yeah, for sure. And Kevin, where can people connect with you if they want to connect with you? You're on LinkedIn, Kevin Bowers, and then it's bowers.law.
Bowers.law on LinkedIn.
I didn't know there was a .law until you did it.
Well, actually, nor did I until I started the law firm. I was looking for, at bowers.com, that was gone. At bowers.com.hk, that was gone for some reason. I have no idea why. And then my very, very good IT consultant, Paul Brand, I'll give him the plug, on his way out said, "Oh, there's bowers.law." I went, whoa, don't leave.
Yeah.
That's now the brand of the firm.
That's a great one, yeah.
All of a sudden, because I saw it immediately. I could see it in lights almost. Yeah. That's how it was going to pan out. So, there's bowers.law, the website. We're on LinkedIn. so pretty easy to get hold of. And please do. The new model works for clients as well as for us, and it's value for money, certainty, and shared risk.
Yeah, well, it's been amazing having you here, and it's been amazing actually just to view your life from the outside. And you remind. I study Stoicism quite a lot, like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and these guys, and just through our conversation, you've reminded me actually what you've been, how you've acted is quite stoic, I would say. You've taken the hits and you've pain, and you've just kept moving forward without complaint, So I just want to say it's been a real pleasure knowing you over these years, and thank you for coming on the podcast, and I hope it offers some inspiration to some people who are looking for it, and just to keep going.
All right, well,
don't give up.
I won't.
Keep punching.
Keep punching. And thanks, Derek. It's been really enjoyable. And tenacity.
Yeah, tenacity. That's the word. So you got to be tenacious.